Today I'm going to demonstrate how to make your own double fold bias tape. We use this technique in the Wholecloth Patterns Fairmount bag, and I'll link to this sewing pattern in the notes below the video. For the Fairmount bag, we use the bias tape to bind the long seams around the curved edges at the bottom of the bag. It makes a really nice clean finish on the interior of the bag, and it's a great way to give your bag a unique personality. This is 1/2 inch double fold bias tape, and if you'd like a different dimension, you can easily alter the measurements from the video. We'll start with a lightweight woven fabric, something like quilting cotton or a cotton shirting, something that will hold the creases nicely when it's ironed so that your bias binding will stay folded on its own. And you want it to be lightweight because you're going to have multiple layers of fabric folded together, and if you're using a heavy fabric, it can get pretty bulky. Bias cut binding is cut at a 45-degree angle to the selvage edge of the fabric. And you can see if we pull on the fabric at that angle, it does have a little bit of stretch. So our finished bias binding will also have a little bit of stretch, and that allows you to push and pull the binding to get it to lay flat when you're going around a curve. All you need to make bias binding is the lightweight woven fabric, a ruler, something to mark the fabric with, scissors, and an iron. To make the binding, I'm going to turn the fabric so the wrong side is facing up. And the first thing I need to do is find the line of the bias for this fabric. That's pretty easy if you still have the selvage edge. You can just turn down one corner so that wrong sides are touching, and you want to fold it so that the selvage edge makes a 90-degree angle to itself. You don't have to get the protractor out for this. I just eyeball it, and when I'm pretty confident that I've got the 90-degree angle on the selvage, then I'm going to iron this fold into the fabric. Next, I'm going to use my ruler and marking pencil to mark a line 1 inch down from this fold the whole way along the fold. I'm going to make 1/2 inch bias binding, so I'm basing this measurement on double the 1/2 inch measurement. If you're making binding that is a different finished width, you can easily change this dimension to make whatever you want. Next, I'm going to cut along this line to make a 1 inch folded strip. Here's my 1 inch folded strip of fabric. There's the open side and the folded side. At this point, if I needed a piece of bias binding that was longer than this, I can easily join two pieces together. Here I have another 1 inch folded strip, and I'm going to open both folds up, and with right sides together, I'm going to put them on top of each other so that they make a 90-degree angle to each other. Normally I would be more efficient than this, but I'm going to make it pretty exaggerated so that you can see what I'm doing. So we kind of have made a square here where the two pieces overlap, and I'm going to sew from corner to corner across these two pieces of fabric. So from this corner where the two pieces overlap down to this corner where the two pieces overlap. There you can see how I sewed across the two corners of the fabric. We go from having this 90-degree angle of fabric to when we open up the seam, we have one continuous piece. And here you can see that the seam is at an angle to the strip of fabric, and that just keeps that seam from being a bulky bump in your bias binding. Now we're going to grade this crazy seam allowance. I'm going to cut it down to about 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to press the seam to one side. Now I'm going to refold our strip along the crease that we made before, and we can continue with making our bias binding. We're going to iron 2 more folds into our fabric. So I'm going to open the fabric back up and I'm going to fold this long edge in until it just about touches the center crease down the middle of this strip of fabric. And then I'm going to iron in this fold the whole length of our strip. So now we have 2 folds down one side of the fabric, and we're going to repeat that with the other side. We'll fold this long edge in until it just about touches the center crease, and then press this fold down the length of the fabric. So here are those 2 folds that we just made. Now we're going to fold it back in half along the long center crease, and then I'm going to give it another good press just so it really holds its shape. And we're done. There's our finished double fold 1/2 inch bias binding. Thanks for following along today. Be sure to check out the notes below the video for all the links from today's tutorial, and click subscribe to follow the Wholecloth Patterns sewing channel.